Hi, my name's Kris. Welcome to my studio. Have you ever wondered if you should add a neutral tint or a gray to your watercolor palette? In this video, I share 6 different grays that I have used in my studio, and then I narrow it down to my 3 top choices. If you'd like to find out which of these colors I recommend, keep watching till the end. Let's get started. In this video, I swatch out 6 colors that I have in my watercolor studio. These colors are all in the gray or neutral tint area of the color wheel. Some of them are warm grays and others are more cool, even leaning into dark blue colors. Once I swatch them all out next to each other, you will really be able to see the temperature differences. Here I am now, just squeezing out a little bit of each of these colors onto my palette, and in a moment I will explain a bit more about each color. But first, let me begin by saying that some highly respected watercolor artists argue that you don't need a gray or a black or a neutral tint of any kind on your watercolor palette. They rightly suggest that you can achieve these colors by mixing complementary primary colors that are already on your palette. And of course, this is true. I actually have another video on this channel showing some of my favorite neutral tint or gray mixes. You might want to check that out. However, at the same time, there are other equally respected watercolor artists that do include one or more of these gray colors on their palette. They demonstrate in their practice that it's actually easier to achieve more muted colors by simply adding one of these gray colors to the mix. I will leave it up to you to decide which approach you want to take. I've arranged the colors on this small porcelain palette from warm to cool gray, starting in this upper left corner and proceeding in a clockwise direction to the bottom of the palette. As I swatch each color, I will share the manufacturer, the pigment numbers, and other unique qualities of the paint. The first color that I'm going to swatch out here is Ivory Black. This is a Magello Mission Gold color. I rarely actually paint with this color. I've hardly ever used it, but it's in my collection of paints, and so I thought I would share it here. And it's on the warmest end, believe it or not, the warmest end of the spectrum. And when you'll see when it dries, it almost dries at a kind of a brownish color when compared to the other colors here. Next is a Daniel Smith color. This is Moon Glow. In fact, all the rest of the colors I will swatch here are all Daniel Smith. This is also a fairly cool, warm color in that it has quite a bit of red in it, unlike the other grays. Moon Glow is a combination of 3 colors, PG18, PB29, and PR177. As you can see, I've listed all the pigment colors here right below the paint. Next is Neutral Tint by Daniel Smith. This is PBK6 plus PV19, a violet color, plus PB15, which is Phthalo Blue. Next is Payne's Gray by Daniel Smith. This is PB29 plus PBK9. So that's a combination of a blue, which is French ultramarine, and a black, PBK9. Hopefully already you can see how we're going from a warmer color to a more middle temperature color to now we're going to start into more cool or bluish gray colors. This next color is Indigo. This is also Daniel Smith. It is PB60 plus PBK6. And the last of the 6 colors is Mayan Dark Blue by Daniel Smith. And again, this is the coolest of the 6 colors that I'm swatching out today. It's actually a blue color. It's PB82, just a single pigment color with just blue in it. Oops, I got a little of extra paint there. Let me try to smooth that out. And so this is the coolest of the 6 colors. I'm going to go ahead and let these dry completely, and then we'll be able to compare them side by side to see their relative color temperature and their different characteristics. Now that all these color swatches have dried, we can see the colors and their relationship to each other. Here on the far left, the warmest of the colors, the Ivory Black, almost looks brown in comparison to these other colors. So it is, again, what I would call the warmest of these colors. Again, not a color I use that often on my palette. It's PBK 7. And I just had it as part of a kit that I got, a set of paints from Magellan Mission Gold, but I don't use it that often. Next is the Moon Glow. This is a beautiful color. I have another video about it. It is very highly granulating, and when it dries, it separates out into actually a little bit. You can see a little bit of the green, the blue, and the reds that emerge in the granulation as this dries. I don't see it too strongly here, but if you want to check that out, look for the other video on my channel, and you can see how beautiful this color is. This middle color, again, it's placed here in the middle because it really is probably, in terms of watercolors, the temperature of different watercolors is probably in the middle of the temperature range amongst all these other colors. This pigment is designed by Daniel Smith to be a neutralizing color. In other words, it can easily mute or neutralize other colors on your palette. And it's a really handy color to have on your palette, and I've been using it more and more. But this has been designed specifically to work well with a lot of other colors and not create muddy colors. And so I really like this neutral tint color by Daniel Smith. Payne's Gray, now we're starting to see here as we move from neutral tint to Payne's Gray, it's a lot more blue. It is PB29, which is ultramarine blue plus a black pigment. And so you can see it's more towards blue than the neutral tint. I really like this color as well. Makes beautiful value study paintings and can be added to other cool pigment colors and to create a little bit darker version of those colors. Beautiful for shadows. Next we get to Indigo. Now we see Indigo by Daniel Smith is even more blue and starting to get to be a really cool color. And I used to use this color more, but I've started to switch over more to the neutral tint and Payne's Gray, which are a little bit more in the middle of the temperature range. But the Indigo is still a beautiful color and works great in many applications. That's, again, PB60 and PBK6 by Daniel Smith. Finally, I have Mayan Dark Blue. And some people would not even consider this within the gray family, but when I swatched it out, I really saw that, as you can see here, it really completes this range of colors from warm to cool. It's a very cool grayish blue, very dark blue. It actually has a little bit almost of a green cast to it, and that's, again, what brings it all the way over here to the cool side of the spectrum. So these are my 6 colors on my palette. But if I had to narrow it down and just share with you 3 of these colors that I would recommend that you put on your palette, I would have to narrow it down to just these 3. I would actually rank them number 1 and number 2 and number 3. I really like the neutral tint by Daniel Smith. I'm using it more and more. I'm mixing it with other colors to create beautiful muted colors. It mixes really nicely with lots of other colors without making them muddy. And so it's becoming a real favorite of mine and one that I use in a lot of my paintings. I can highly recommend neutral tint. The number 2 choice here would be Payne's Gray, just because it's a little bit more blue, and often I'm wanting to mix my dark neutral colors with my blue colors or other cool colors. And so this just does that really nicely. And I just think it's a beautiful color. Also, Payne's Gray is more granulating than neutral tint, and I love granulating colors, so I really like the Payne's Gray. And then number 3, I would also add the Indigo to my list of recommended grays or bluish grays, just because, again, I really like this color. It's a beautiful color, and it mixes nicely with other colors. So those 3, if I were to recommend some gray or bluish gray colors to add to your palette, it would be those 3. I hope you found this helpful as you figure out what kind of colors you want to put on your palette. Again, some artists suggest you don't use any of these colors on your palette, but that instead you mix your own neutrals, and that's a great option as well. Check out my other video about how to mix neutrals and grays from the primary colors on your palette. If you have found this video to be helpful, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. I put a new video out like this about once a week. Have a great day. Keep on painting. See you next time.